When hockey purists first saw the jade green and eggplant purple jerseys with a cartoon duck, they laughed and hated it. A team, named after a Disney movie. It was a disgrace to the game. But what most people don't realize is that the release of that movie, The Mighty Ducks, turned out to be one of the most influential moments in hockey history. In fact, when you look back at what happened since, the butterfly effect was massive. And the crazy thing, it almost never happened. And had it not, American hockey wouldn't look the way it does today. Today we're going through the insane butterfly effect of The Mighty Ducks and how a script nobody wanted became the movie that changed hockey forever. But first, like this video if you've ever tried a knuckle puck in your driveway, and subscribe for more retro hockey deep dives. Let's rewind to the early 1990s. George H.W. Bush was president, grunge was exploding, Michael Jordan dominated basketball, and hockey in America looked nothing like it does today. In Canada, it was religion. But outside Minnesota, Michigan, Massachusetts, and other northern states, it remained a fringe sport in the U.S. The miracle on ice happened in 1980. That should have changed everything. But a decade later, youth registration had barely moved. In 1990, USA Hockey had fewer than 200,000 registered players nationwide. It was underrepresented in pop culture. You had Slapshot, an R-rated 1977 comedy about the Hanson brothers beating the hell out of everyone, and Youngblood, where Rob Lowe and the crowd don't understand that the puck doesn't have to be flat to count as a goal. Both were classics, but neither one was designed for an 8-year-old with NHL dreams. The NHL was slowly making inroads in the South. Wayne Gretzky's trade to LA in 1988 had opened some eyes in California. The San Jose Sharks played their inaugural season in 1991. But still, the hockey waters were lukewarm. Families in Orange County didn't grow up skating on frozen ponds. They needed a reason to care, and that reason came in the form of a script that nobody wanted. Stephen Brill was a young screenwriter with an idea. He loved hockey. He had played on a struggling Pee-wee team as a kid. Later, he coached his son's team in Minneapolis. He knew the sport from the inside, the chaos, the heart, the way a random group of kids could become a family on the ice. So he wrote a script. A lawyer gets a DUI, gets sentenced to community service, and has to coach the worst hockey team in the city. Underdogs who couldn't skate. A coach who rediscovered why he loved the game. Classic sports movie formula, but on ice. He called it The Mighty Ducks. When he tried to sell it, studios passed and executives laughed. Brill later told Time, "I had an agent, a small agent, who looked at the script and tried to put it out there in the marketplace, and it didn't sell." For years, the script sat. No takers. Hockey was box office poison. You'd have had better luck pitching a movie about competitive shot put. But then came the luckiest and most unlikely break that changed everything for him. And American hockey. Enter Michael Eisner, CEO of Disney. He wasn't looking for a hockey movie. He wasn't looking for a franchise. But he had something no other studio head had. Kids who played youth hockey. Eisner spent weekends at rinks, watched his son skate, and saw the sport up close. He saw the gap. He saw that hockey didn't have an entry point for kids, so when Brill's script eventually landed at Disney, it didn't get tossed aside like everywhere else. Eisner looked at it through a different lens, not as another sports movie, but as something his own kids, and millions of others, actually needed. He greenlit it with a modest budget and even more modest expectations. Just a family film that might break even. Disney had the script. They had the budget, now they needed faces. And that was where things got complicated. Because who in Hollywood wanted to headline a kids' hockey movie? Nobody. Emilio Estevez wasn't even Disney's first choice. They wanted a bigger star, someone who could guarantee box office. Funny enough, Emilio's brother Charlie Sheen was their first pick for Gordon Bombay. He said no. So we almost went from Youngblood to Tiger Blood. Other A-listers were considered: Tom Cruise, Tom Hanks, Bill Murray, Michael J. Fox. But Emilio stepped in and said yes. His Brat Pack credibility gave the film legitimacy. Director Stephen Herrick had been impressed by The Breakfast Club and St. Elmo's Fire. Then came the harder part, the kids. Most of them couldn't skate at all. Casting directors had to choose based on personality, not skill. Joshua Jackson became Charlie Conway, the heart of the team. Shaun Weiss became Goldberg, the comic relief goalie. Eldon Henson became Fulton Reed, the enforcer with a bomb of a slap shot. Marguerite Moreau became Connie, the glue. They weren't polished actors, they weren't athletes, they were kids who had to learn both at once. Disney threw them into boot camp, 12 to 16 weeks of skating and acting training combined. 4 stunt doubles per kid. Actor Matt Doherty, who played Averman, later said, "In the first movie, we did all the bad skating, and when they wanted us to be good, most of the time it was the doubles." Somehow it worked, but test audiences felt differently. Reviews were mixed. Executives doubted it constantly. Critics who saw early screenings were brutal. Again, this wasn't a sure thing. This was Disney throwing $10 million at a long shot and hoping families showed up. So, with a flying V and a prayer, on October 2nd, 1992, The Mighty Ducks opened in theaters. The reviews were savage. Roger Ebert called it formulaic. The Washington Post said Brill constructed the screenplay much as one would put together some of those particle board bookcases from IKEA. Critics hated it, but what really mattered was what audiences thought. And it turned out they loved it. Families showed up. Kids dragged their parents. Word of mouth spread. The cinema score came back with an A grade. The movie made $50.7 million at the box office, more than 5 times its budget. Then it became a VHS juggernaut. According to Video Week magazine, the movie pulled in $54 million in rental revenue in 1993 alone, more than it made in theaters. Kids wore out the tapes, they quoted the lines, they wanted the jerseys, they did the quack, quack, quack chant on playgrounds. Disney had a phenomenon on their hands, but Disney was far from done. They saw dollar signs and a perfect storm. While the movie blew up, the NHL was in expansion mode. San Jose had just launched in 1991. Tampa Bay and Florida were on deck. The league wanted warm weather teams to prove hockey could work outside the frozen north. When the NHL began looking for a franchise in Anaheim, where a brand new arena was being built just minutes from Disneyland, Eisner didn't wait for someone else to pitch him. He pitched them. His idea was bold, even ridiculous. Name the team after the movie. Same logo, same colors. The Mighty Ducks of Anaheim. Executives in the league thought it was crazy. Purists scoffed. A cartoon duck on an NHL jersey, a team named after a kid's film. It sounded like a gimmick, and yeah, it was. But Eisner saw what they didn't. He saw a chance to anchor Anaheim's new arena with a team that already had a built-in fan base. And so, he pulled the trigger. December 1992, just 69 days after the movie's release, Disney officially bought the franchise rights for $50 million. The Mighty Ducks of Anaheim were real, and the ripple effect was massive, and it extended far beyond the Arrowhead Pond. Disney had 200 retail stores across America. Every Disney store from coast to coast sold Ducks gear. Orange Coast magazine wrote in 1995, "One can't walk the streets in Southern California without seeing the team's logo or its teal and maroon color scheme on a hat, t-shirt, or bumper sticker." Kids in Texas, Florida, and Arizona wore Ducks jerseys. By the end of the 1993-94 season, the Ducks accounted for 80% of all NHL merchandise sales. 80%. From a first-year expansion team. And the Disney marketing machine didn't stop. They released D2 in 1994. The sequel prominently featured the real NHL team's jerseys, filmed at the brand-new Arrowhead Pond. Approximately 15,000 fans showed up for the first day of shooting. D3 followed in 1996. The Flying V and the Knuckle puck became cultural touchstones. Kids across the country triple-deked in their driveways. But this wasn't just a cash grab for Disney, it was a cultural shift. A Grantland retrospective described how D2 changed entire communities. Rember Brown wrote about growing up in Atlanta, not exactly a hockey hotbed. He was 7 years old when D2 came out in March 1994. His neighborhood was full of black kids in Jordan jerseys playing basketball until dark. Then D2 hit. Halfway through the summer, my neighborhood had officially become Hockeytown, USA. A basketball hadn't been touched in weeks. Every kid tried to master the knuckle puck. Russ Tyler, played by Kenan Thompson, was the idol. Many of the NHL stars we cheer for today acknowledge the impact the movie had on them. Austin Matthews, born in California, raised in Arizona, publicly said The Mighty Ducks was his favorite sports movie. T.J. Oshie and Jeff Skinner talked about idolizing the Quack Attack when they were kids. Ducks legend Paul Correa said, "The movies made hockey accessible in places where ice was rare. Without that, you don't see the explosion in sunny climates like Anaheim." And the numbers backed it up. In 1990, USA Hockey had fewer than 200,000 registered players. By 2000, that number hit 439,000, a 125% increase in one decade. California youth registration more than tripled between 1990 and 2000, with many citing the Mighty Ducks as their entry point. More than 3 decades after the first movie, the full impact was clear. In the 1970s, only 2% of NHL players were American. By the late 1990s, that number climbed to 15%. By the 2023-24 season, nearly 30% of the NHL was American. The United States now produced nearly as many registered hockey players as Canada. The gap that used to be massive had essentially closed. Now, was that all because of the Mighty Ducks? Of course not. But for 90s kids who paid no attention to hockey before, hockey suddenly became cool. If you ask anyone under 40 to name a hockey movie, they'll almost always say the Mighty Ducks. For most of them, that's how they were introduced to the sport. The butterfly effect of that is greater than most people realize. And if Michael Eisner didn't have kids who played hockey, none of it would have happened. If you like this retro hockey deep dive, hit that subscribe button. Thanks for watching.